Afternoon, this is Dr. Anamta Rizvi and I am your UGC NET English Literature Educator at Study IQ. Today we will be going ahead with a very important lesson, that is Lyrical Ballades by Wordsworth. Now Lyrical Ballades एक ऐसा text है जो कि romantic age की foundation था, वहाँ से जितना भी romantic poems है, writings है, वहाँ से stem हुआ था. Why? Because it talks about a very different language. कि ये language use होनी चाहिए, इस तरह के themes होनी चाहिए, not the themes and language that was being used in the neoclassical period, जो कि बहुत ही strategically था, calculated way में लिखा रहता था. Iambic pentameter होना चाहिए, heroic couplet होना चाहिए, and so on. But romantic age was very different, and this text is very important. Why? Because it establishes the foundation of the literary criticism of the romantic period as a literary critic work. Again, a very important text. This is the reason कि UGC NET इस पे इतने questions focus करता है. And William Wordsworth का text है, तो it makes it all the more important and interesting. So today we will go ahead with Lyrical Ballades. All right. So guys, let me know in the comment section if I'm audible, if I'm visible. Okay. I think we are good to go. I'll go ahead with the text. So guys, let me tell you before that we are हमारा जो दिसंबर में एग्जाम होने वाला है, we have started with a batch and the course is for ₹5,999 and you can use my code AR Live. Paper 1 is taught by Masroor sir and Shimal ma'am, and paper 2, that is English literature, is taught by me. We will be covering the entire syllabus, mock test, MCQs, PYQs, everything will be taken care of, and we are going to go for a very, very comprehensive preparation. Okay, so guys, with this, I am Dr. Anamta Rizvi. And I did my PhD in English literature from Jamia Millia Islamia. I'm qualified my JRF. You can follow me on the Telegram channel, Dr. Anamta Rizvi English Literature, for more such content. Okay, so we first of all we need to understand कि lyrical ballad कब आया, कितने editions आए. ये favorite question है NT UGC NET का, and we will be discussing that. So Lyrical Ballads by William Wordsworth, first edition is 1798. Remember, 1800 को ख़त्म होने में बस 2 साल रह गए थे. ये 1798 में आया है, and 1798 जिस साल लिरिकल बैलेज आया है वर्ड्सवर्थ का, that is considered the age जहाँ से romantic period शुरू होता है. It goes around 1830, 1850. We'll discuss about that. So remember this, and it's a very important and a common thing, and one must know this. So going ahead, first edition is 1798. This focused on rural life, emotions and nature. Key contributions from Coleridge included the rhyme of the ancient marina. इस सब को हम लोग बहुत elaborate way में discuss करेंगे. This is important because editions के बारे में पूछा जाता है. We will discuss everything, important quotes from here, and then at the end we are discussing the most expected and the questions जो कि आ चुके हैं lyrical ballet में from UGC NET. Okay, so we will be doing the questions also. So going ahead with the second edition is 1800. The introduction of the preface. ये वर्क आया था जहाँ पे सिर्फ पोएम्स पब्लिश थी, कोलरिज की और वर्ड्सवर्थ की. ये एडिशन आया जहाँ पे प्रीफेस आया था. प्रीफेस इन लोगों ने इंक्लूड किया था, तो ये पूछा जाता है कि कौन से एडिशन में प्रीफेस इंक्लूड हुआ था. दैट वाज द सेकंड एडिशन 1800. थर्ड एडिशन 1802 expanded the preface and appendix on poetic diction. तो 2 चीज़ें आई थी, एक तो प्रीफेस को एक्सपैंड किया गया था और रिविजन्स किया था, और अपेंडिक्स ऑन पोएटिक डिक्शन. This question has also been asked. Appendix on poetic diction कौन से edition में add किया गया? That is the third edition. Fourth edition was 1805. Minor revisions to the preface and the final, and the fifth edition was in 1815. Further refinement and classification of poems, showing Wordsworth growing theoretical engagement with his poetic work. 5 editions, final edition में कोई ज़्यादा changes नहीं थे. But yes, the 3 editions that were very important. The first जो कि आया था, no preface, nothing. Second में, yes, there was a preface. And third was expanded preface and an appendix on poetic diction. And the fourth and the fifth were here. Okay? All right, guys. So going ahead with this, now we are coming to the next slide, and that is the first edition. 1798, publisher Joseph Cottle, Bristol, poems by Wordsworth. Key poems, lines written a few miles above Tintern Abbey, via 7, expostulation and reply, the tables turned, lines written in early spring, and the thorn. Okay, so these are the works जो major key poems थी. ऐसे तो 23 poems थे, we can't list all of them, but ये key poems थी. ये पूछ सकते हैं एग्जाम में कि which of these poems was included in the first edition? Okay, so remember, publisher कौन थे? Joseph Cottle in Bristol. Okay, very important information. Poem by Wordsworth. These were the poems by Wordsworth. अभी हम लोग Coleridge का work देखेंगे. And you can see the first edition, so simple and bland, and that was the first edition that was by Wordsworth. Second was poems by Coleridge. सबसे important poem आई थी Coleridge की Rime of the Ancient Mariner, जो अभी तक हम पढ़ते हैं, syllabus में है, universities के syllabus में है ये work. So this was something that was there. Content, the collection contained 23 poems. Okay, the first edition had 23 poems. सबसे ज़्यादा शाइन किया था सैमुअल टेलर कोलरिज का पोएम एंशिएंट मरीना. कितनी poems, how many poems are included in the first edition of Lyrical Ballad by Wordsworth? A very good question, and 23 poems, most of which were by Wordsworth, and only a few were by Coleridge, including the Rime of the Ancient Mariner. The focus was on themes such as nature, human emotion, and the ordinary lives of people. The aim was to write in simple language, a language जो कि सब समझ पाए. Okay, ये इनका aim था. This is the first edition. Second edition, publisher कौन थे? Longman in London. Okay, these questions are important क्योंकि publishers पूछ सकते हैं. They are asking different question, contextual question. तो ये सब contextual questions important होते हैं. So Longman is the one that was the publisher. Wordsworth added a preface in 1800. पहली बार 1800 में preface add हुआ था, जहाँ पे Wordsworth ने अपना poetic theory बताई थी कि क्या किस तरह से मेरी poetic theory होगी और कैसे इस एज की poetic theory होनी चाहिए. Which is, in it he articulated his poetic principle, including the idea that poetry should be focused on ordinary people, on normal people, not on heroic figures. Because that is the essence. जिस तरह normal people होते हैं उन पे आप poem लिखे, ordinary life पे लिखे, natural settings and deep emotional experiences. Okay, so this was the crux उसका preface का ये points थे. He famously stated that poetry is the spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings. You must have come across this phrase many times. ये Wordsworth ने बोला था. What is poetry? The spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings. This is the phrase that is used जहाँ पे अपना पूरा का पूरा sum करता है. Okay, it should be on ordinary people, it should be natural settings, and it should be in simple language, all right, and deep emotional experiences. Okay, so new poems. अब इसमें कुछ नई poems भी add हुई थी, such as Michael and the Old Cumberland Beggar. Coleridge contribution remained the same. Michael, ये question आ चुका है UGC NET exam में कि Michael कौन से edition में add हुआ था, and that was the second edition. Next you are coming ahead. Poems by Wordsworth, Michael, the Brothers, Nightingale, the Old Cumberland Beggar, Hartley Bellad. This edition consisted of 2 volumes. The first volume contained most of the poems from the 1798, with the second volume included additional poems by Wordsworth. The preface, which outlined Wordsworth's theory of poetry, was added in this edition. Okay, the second edition that we're talking about. Third edition. Now we are coming to the third edition. Publisher again that remained the same. 2 साल के बाद Longman ही रहे थे. Minor revisions were made to the sum of the poem. Wordsworth ने अपना preface expand किया था और third edition में guys appendix title poetic diction आया था. This question has also been asked. This is the reason मैंने lyrical ballet separately लिया है क्योंकि lyrical ballet से almost बहुत questions आ चुके हैं previously. Very much expected कि फिर से question आएगा. तो appendix add हुआ था. मतलब appendix क्या होता है? End में जो poetic diction जितने भी उसको poetic words इसको add करने थे, he added that poetic diction, further defending his views on the use of simple language and poetry. Okay, so poetic diction in the form of appendix was added in the third edition. Okay, next you have is, you can look at the third edition over here. Fourth edition जो कि 1805 में आया था, कोई बहुत major change नहीं हुआ था. The preface was once again revised. फिर से preface revised हुआ. Wordsworth made small changes to some of the poems, and the edition continued to refine his poetic. Final edition 1815 में जो अभी भी हम पढ़ते हैं, Wordsworth made further revision to both the poems and the preface. 1815 का edition also added a new classification of the poem into categories such as poems of the fancy, poems of the imagination, and poems of sentiment and reflection. Question can come in the exam कि कौन से edition में ये categorization हुआ था. 3 category थी, a poem of the fancy, imagination, and sentiment and reflection. 3 categories थी. ये 1815 the last edition काफी time बाद आया था, and that was there. 5 editions are here and we have listed all of them. So this is important for you. मतलब आपकी very expected question, this is in the exam. In the preface, Wordsworth outlined his revolutionary ideas on poetry. Now you must understand this because again, आपके understanding के लिए, romantic age के लिए, as well as from the point of view of the exam, it is important. Whatever exam that you're focusing on, lyrical ballets हमेशा included होता है criticism में. Focuses on ordinary life. First thing, आज हम लोग discuss कर चुके हैं कि ordinary life पे सबसे बड़ा focus था. Poetry should reflect the lives of common people, not of heroes, not of warriors, not of kings, but normal common people, particularly those living in rural areas, जो बहुत simple life जीते हैं. Their experiences are more authentic and emotionally rich as compared to people living in city life, okay, which is artificial as compared to rural life. That is what Wordsworth is saying. Use simple language. ये लोग कौन सी language use करेंगे? Simple language use करेंगे. So use simple language. Poetry should be written in the language really used by men. This is the quote that we are taking it from the preface. Avoiding the artificial ornate. Ornate मतलब सजा धजा language. No. Simple language. कोई jargon नहीं, कोई difficult word नहीं. Of previous poetry, poetry is emotion. He says कि poetry is a spontaneous overflow of powerful emotions. जब आप emotionally overwhelmed होते हैं, दुखी हो, sadness हो, that is the time कि आपके जो words निकलते हैं, that is not your only words, but that is a reflection of your emotions. That is what he's saying, that poetry is not to be written in calculative way. Reason, order नहीं है, जो कि Alexander Pope और Dryden कहते थे कि no, poetry cannot be written in a calculative manner, strategic manner. ये एक spontaneous overflow है powerful feelings का. Defined as a spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings, poetry should convey deep emotion, but these emotions must be written in word and they must be expressed. Okay, so you see this simple language, and the theory is also very simple. कोई difficult नहीं understand करने के लिए lyrical ballets की theory. Ordinary people के बारे में बात करो, simple use language करो और feelings के बारे में लिखो, right? This is what he's saying. Next you have is central role of imagination. Whenever we talk about poetry, of course imagination comes to center, and वो कहता है जैसे आपको अपना दिमाग नहीं लगाना, आपको अपना imagination लगाना है. What is your brain? Brain reason करता है, but imagination is also brains, but that's a fancier version, right? So central role of imagination. Imagination transforms ordinary events into profound experiences, making it essential in poetic expression. तो कहता है imagination जो एक familiar भी चीज़ होती है ना, उसको हम लोग defamiliarize करता है, मतलब हम लोग उसको नए एंगल से देखने लगते हैं. Poet किसी अगर एक cat के बारे में भी लिखेगा, if it's a good poet, we can discover things about cat, or we can feel about the cat जब हम लोग कभी feel ही ना किया हो. A cat, dog, all these are normal animals that we see every day, right? So that is what he's saying. He's not taking the example of a cat, ये मैं बोल रही हूँ, but I'm just telling you that that is what he's saying, that write in a manner that is the imagination comes to play, okay? The poet as a communicator, the poet is a man speaking to men, connecting deeply with readers by expressing universal truths through personal experiences. Okay, तो जो भी हम लोग experience करते हैं, we all are experiencing life, okay? कहीं ना कहीं भी हमारे we encounter such universal truths जो कि valid होते हैं. So he's saying that speak like a man to man, okay? Express this in words. All right. Next you have is moral insight and pleasure. Poetry should offer both emotional pleasure and moral understanding. Okay, contributing to personal growth and understanding of life. Poetry is life. Okay, we have heard this, we know this. But poetry, how poetry should give a holistic experience. हमें pleasure भी दे, हमें एक moral insight भी दे, that this is right, this is wrong, okay? And it gives us wisdom, okay? This is exactly what he's saying. Next is nature ka influence. Nature is a vital source of truth. Look at nature, you will get to know what is the truth, okay? That is what he's saying. Critique of neoclassicism. जितने भी points हैं ना, ये सब neoclassicism के जो age था, Pope का, Dryden का, so these were focusing on very reason, order, heroic couplet, itne syllables hona chahiye, octosyllabic couplet, all these things were being talked about. So he was like, no. Wordsworth rejected the formal intellectual style of neoclassical poetry, advocating for a more emotional, personal and natural approach. This is the reason kiske kitne works blank verse mein hai, right? So this was something that was important during that period. Next is a very important thing. Some of the famous quotes जो कि विलियम वर्ड्सवर्थ के लिरिकल बैले में हमें मिलता है. दिस इज इम्पॉर्टेंट. पूरा का पूरा कोट आ सकता है एग्जाम में. सो इफ यू वांट टू टेक अ स्क्रीनशॉट ऑफ दिस और इफ यू वांट टू कॉपी दिस डाउन, प्लीज डू सो. सबसे पहले हम बात कर सकते हैं पोएट्री इज द स्पॉन्टेनियस ओवरफ्लो ऑफ पावरफुल फीलिंग्स. इट टेक्स इट्स ओरिजिन फ्रॉम इमोशन रिकलेक्टेड इन ट्रैंक्विलिटी. लर्न दिस कोट. ये इतना फेमस कोट है, ये पूछा जा चुका है, या कभी आप किसी आंसर लिख रहे हो, ये कोट लिख देना, 2 मार्क टीचर ज्यादा दे देगी. ओके, सो दिस इज अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट कोट. ये क्रक्स है थ्योरी का उसके. ठीक है. This famous quote defines Wordsworth's view of poetry as deeply emotion reflecting. Second quote, numbering is wrong, please just ignore that. The principal object that which I proposed to myself in these poems was to choose incidents and situations from common life and to relate or describe them in a selection of language really used by men. Another important, कितना simple language में quote है, अगर मैं समझाऊं भी ना समझ में आ जाएगा. ये क्या बोल रहा है? Wordsworth emphasize करता है कि the intent to focus on ordinary people and their experiences using simple everyday language. ये quote है इसका, बहुत ही simple way में लिखा है. Third is, for all good poetry is a spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings. Again, he's saying the same thing, reaffirming that emotion rather than intellect or elaborate artifice is central to poetry. He's saying that do not use reason. Use your emotions to express your poetry. This is what he's saying. For all good poetry, it's a spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings. The poet is a man speaking to men. A man, it is true, endowed with more lively sensibility, more enthusiasm and tenderness. Wordsworth elevates the poet as someone with heightened emotions and sensitivity, but still grounded in common humanity. He is putting the poet on a very good pedestal. Everybody cannot be a poet. Poets are very empathetic. They have strong sense of surrounding. Emotionally, they are very well equipped. And that is what he's saying, that he elevates the poet as someone who has a knack of understanding and presenting their work. And that is what a good poet should always endeavor. Okay, next we have, what is a poet? He's a man who has greater knowledge of human nature and a more comprehensive soul than one supposed to be a common among mankind. Again, he is elevating the level of a poet to a very higher realm. Understand this. As someone is deeply in touch with human emotions, the language of men, a very important quote, the language of men in real life has been adopted, purified indeed from what appear to be its real defects, from all lasting and rational causes of dislike or disgust. He says, Wordsworth explains his use of everyday language in poetry, although refined for clarity and emotional power. He says that I will use everyday language, although I will refine it so that poetry is more powerful, more emotional. However, my endeavor, Wordsworth कह रहा है that my endeavor is always to use language जो ordinary लोग इस्तेमाल करते हैं. Okay, so the human mind is capable of being excited without the application of gross and violent stimulants. Wordsworth argue करता है that true poetry doesn't need exaggerated sensational themes to evoke deep emotions. Okay, so guys, a very short lesson. This is the only crux that we have about lyrical ballet. I will be discussing sometime. We will now be discussing the questions that you expect in lyrical ballet. Now, this is a very important. क्योंकि lyrical ballet से बड़े आसान question लगता है कि ये text बड़ा आसान है, इसमें से तो कुछ भी आएगा, मैं answer कर लेंगे. लेकिन the thing is this कि यहाँ पे ऐसे टेक्निकल क्वेश्चन पूछने, कितनी पोएम्स आई थी, कौन से प्रीफेस में ये लिखा हुआ था, इस तरह की बात है. सो लेट्स फोकस ऑन दैट. ऑलराइट, मीनवाइल इफ एनीवन हैज एनी क्वेश्चंस यू ऑल कैन डेफिनेटली आस्क इन द कमेंट सेक्शन. ऑलराइट, सो फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन, which of the following statement best captures Wordsworth's rationale for using simple language in lyrical ballet? Very simple, and the answer is B. We have, he felt that simple language was closer to the truth and emotions of common people. Okay, now isko samajhte hain. He felt that simple language was closer to the truth and emotions of common people. Wordsworth's core argument in the preface was that poetry should reflect the language really used by men. ये हमने बहुत बार repeat कर लिया है. I'm sure ये दिमाग में अब register कर गया होगा. Especially common people, because it is more sincere, more natural, more authentic, more reality based. Okay. And it is not artificial, it is not elevated language of the neoclassical poetry. He's like, we are done with talking about the higher class, the rape of the lock में two noble families के बारे में बात. No, we don't need to talk about Hind and the Panther. No, we need to talk about the ordinary people, everyday life. In the preface to Lyrical Ballad, जो कि second edition में आया था 1800 में, remember, Wordsworth famously defined poetry as, and that is the spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings recollected in tranquility. Learn this quote, okay? Please learn this quote. The spontaneous, Wordsworth's definition emphasizes the emotional spontaneity of poetry. Emotional spontaneity क्या होती है? हमारे पास जो emotions आते हैं ना, एकदम से आते, कभी कभी मिक्स्ड आते हैं, कभी कभी क्या जाते जब हम लोग ओवरवेल्म्ड होते हैं, चाहे खुशी हो दुख हो, रोएंगे भी हंसेंगे भी, ओके. सो दैट इज अ स्पॉन्टेनियस ओवरफ्लो ऑफ फीलिंग्स, जहाँ पे एकदम से लाइक अ फाउंटेन द फीलिंग्स आर इमर्जिंग, ओके. स्पॉन्टेनियस ओवरफ्लो, स्पॉन्टेन मतलब जल्दी जल्दी, स्पॉन्टेनियस वे में, एक्सक्यूज मी. But also the necessity of reflecting on those emotions before expressing them, which contrasts with the more intellectual approach of earlier poets like Dryden or Poe. So it's like they need to be spontaneous, they need to be in a way that lage ki haan, the poetry has just been written in an emotional way, okay. Next we have coming to, according to Wordsworth and Lyrical Ballad, what is the primary role of the poet? And the primary role is to act as a moral guide, revealing universe. Sorry, I need to drink water. Just a second, please. Excuse me. All right, better. So according to Wordsworth and Lyrical Ballad, what is the primary role of the poet? And that is to act as a moral guide, revealing universal truths through profound emotion. Wordsworth argued that poet had a special sensitivity to emotions and nature, which allowed them to express universal human truths that others may not see. Okay, तो उसका elevation बहुत high है poets का in Wordsworth view. Which of the following poems from Lyrical Ballad exemplifies Wordsworth's use of ordinary subjects and everyday language? Technical question, okay? ये theoretical base नहीं है. ये मतलब इसमें answer क्या होगा ये ढूंढना मुश्किल है, क्योंकि इसमें पूछ रहे हैं कि which of the poems from Lyrical Ballad exemplifies Wordsworth's use of ordinary subjects and everyday language, and that is the poem We Are Seven. Okay, We Are Seven. क्यों? Because We Are Seven जो poem है Wordsworth के ने लिखी है, illustrate करता है simple language, everyday subjects, focusing on conversation with a little girl about death. छोटी सी बेटी के लड़की से बात कर रहा है about death. A theme rendered in plain and direct speech. Michael would also be a correct answer for its emphasis on rural life, but We Are Seven is more characteristic of Wordsworth's approach to simplicity in this collection. Michael भी बहुत ही subject बहुत ही normal तरीके से लिखा गया है, and We Are Seven, but We Are Seven is more closer, okay, to the idea जो Wordsworth का था, that ordinary subject, ordinary life, उसके बारे में. So remember, this is a very critical question. Please make sure that you're taking note of this. Next you have is, which of the following did Wordsworth argue against in his preface to Lyrical Ballad? And Wordsworth कहता है the reliance on artificial poetic diction, जो neoclassical period का था, वो कहता है नहीं, poetic diction artificial नहीं होना चाहिए. Wordsworth explicitly rejected the artificiality and high stylized language that was used by poets like Alexander Pope. Okay, so he's like, we must not use that language. Why did Wordsworth feel the need to include a preface? ये question technical है, technical भी है और interesting भी है. Let's apply some brains here. So why did Wordsworth feel the need to include a preface in neat edition of Lyrical Ballad? Why? Because he wanted to explain why Coleridge's poem were included. No. To defend his use of the sonnet. No. To promote the inclusion. No. To clarify his artistic intent, कि वो क्यों poet बना, and address critics of his poetic style. There were critics and everybody was like, why is Wordsworth writing in such a way? So it was like an answer, and it was like that this is my style and this should be the style of the age. So he said to clarify his artistic intent, कि उसका artistic intent क्या है वो clear करना था, and address करना था अपने critics को that why is he writing in that style, okay? So Wordsworth wanted to explain his poetic philosophy, which had been misunderstood or criticized after the first edition of Lyrical Ballad, because it was written in a very different manner. So he wanted to defend his use of ordinary language and subjects, as well as approach to emotion and poetry. Next you have is, in the preface, Wordsworth asserts that poetry should be written for which audience? We all know that for common people using language and themes they can relate to. He's been saying that common themes, common people, rural life, simple ordinary life, that is what should be the theme. Wordsworth's criticism of gross and violent stimulants in poetry refers to the use of shocking or sensational themes to provoke superficial emotional reactions. He said that no, poetry should be deep inside. Poetry should evoke emotions that are deep inside you. It shouldn't be artificial. They should not become on the surface. Superficial नहीं होना चाहिए, ऊपर ऊपर नहीं होना चाहिए. Wordsworth argued that true poetry did not need to exaggerate or shock you. Instead, he believed that poetry should arise from genuine human emotions and experiences without relying on any sensationalism. We do not need to make it sensational. We do not need to make it shocking or scary or creepy. No, it should be genuine, coming from your deep emotions. Next you have is the last two questions we have. How many poems were included in the first edition of Lyrical Ballet? Very good question and very much asked. 23. The first edition of Lyrical Ballet contained 23 poems primarily written by Wordsworth, but Coleridge का एक बहुत important poem, that is Rime of the Ancient Mariner, include हुआ the first edition में. Which poem was added by Wordsworth in the second edition of Lyrical Ballet that became a notable example of his focus on rural life and the common man? And the answer is Michael. This question has been asked in the exam on Michael, and Michael was added in the 1800 edition of Lyrical Ballet. It is a pastoral poem that focuses on rural life, a common shepherd, and themes of loss, showcasing Wordsworth's commitments to portraying the lives of ordinary rural people. Okay guys, so with this we are coming to a lecture on Wordsworth Lyrical Ballet, a very simple lecture, very simple theoretical framework. This entire literary criticism is by Wordsworth, but the most important part is कि important है from exam point of view. It seems as if it's very easy, but sometimes when you get questions in exam, especially on poems, कि कौन सी poem add हुई है, कौन सी नहीं हुई है, कौन सी हो सकती, you know कि कौन सा उसकी philosophy के बारे में बात कर रहा है, that is the catch. Okay, so guys, please read this work, Lyrical Ballet. For more comprehensive, detailed, I will be discussing on the Study IQ app that we have. We will be going ahead with literary criticism. So all my students, Harshita, Shivani, Sukriti, Adarsh, Anshu, whoever is watching me, we will be discussing this further in our upcoming classes. All right. So if you want to go ahead with the course, guys, you can go ahead with the course on 5999. You can use my code ARLIVE. Very comprehensive preparations we do for our upcoming exam on UGC NET English Literature. In this price, in 5999, you are getting paper 1 as well as paper 2. Paper 1 is taught by teachers that we have, Masrusa and Shimal ma'am, and paper 2 is taught by me, that is literature. Okay, so thank you for watching the video. Please subscribe to the channel for more such content and like the video. Thank you everyone. See you tomorrow at 12.